Hi. Hello and welcome to Open Minds UFO Radio. This is your host, Alejandro Rojas, and I am here with my good friend, Martin Willis. I've gotten a little bit of feedback, and I would like to hear your what you think of this, Martin. Some people miss when I used to give you that little nickname in the middle. You know, I'd say Martin Goofball Willis or something like that. I use that one a lot. Goofball, I probably use it the most. But you rolled your eyes, so it seems like you don't miss it.
No, some of them were really funny, and but I never knew what you were going to say.
Yeah,
and it was kind of like an improv thing.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Did it hurt? Did it ever hurt your feelings? I was cleaning my lens.
Do you think I'm going to say that on the air? I'm going to just send you hate mail instead.
Yeah. I like to clean my lens and do adjustments on my camera
during the show.
The show. In fact, I'm going to move it maybe just like here. It's so funny. I tweak during the entire show. You've probably noticed. I shouldn't do that. Oh, and it's time. It's the time of the show. This reminds me, there was a time of the show on Pee Wee Herman, and I forget where. I guess there were lots of times where the mailman came to the window or something.
Okay.
That was interesting. Who I think was Phil Hartman. You got really excited about that part. But it's just like that when Stacy Wright from Phoenix Move On pops in and says hello. We have that kind of Pee Wee Herman moment where we go, oh, look at Stacy. Hi, Stacy. Yeah, so hi Stacy. It looks like she's in. She's good buddies with my girlfriend Karen. Stacy's in here, at least for now. She was curious. Hi, Stacy. We all say hi. But lots of other people in here. Dirk, Renee, Louise. I'm going to talk about Louise of the Unidentified Celebrity Review because I was just watching a couple of his videos that I thought he brought up some interesting points I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But, and this really has turned into, I was talking to Karen about this before, kind of an AMA, like, you can join us live here on YouTube. So if you have questions, please do come in and ask, because as you all have noticed in the past shows, recently, since we've been doing this, we go off on tangents when people ask some messages and we answer questions or just go off on weirdness or whatever when people do ask questions. So in fact, somebody just asked a question right now. Question for you, Martin. Did your interview with Strieber in any way change your views on either him or his story? And it is Strieber is how you pronounce it. Go.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should call this an AMAA, Ask Me Almost Anything. But no, that's okay. I'll answer that question.
Can't ask you about this?
Yeah. No, it's...
Look. Another guest appearance by one of our guests who come to the show. Pumpkin.
Oh, the dog?
There. Yeah, the cute little fluffy fella.
Oh, I see.
There he is.
Yeah, the little tiny thing laying there. That's the designated spot that dog lays in. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's his favorite spot.
Yeah, kind of keep an eye on the kitchen, on you, everything else.
Exactly. He keeps an eye on me and the kitchen. So if someone goes in the kitchen and does something, or if he wants to come over and get a pet or make me do something, I'm essentially a slave. If he wants to go outside, he comes over. If he wants a pet, if he wants food. So that's...
I'm ready to answer that question, Dirk
Please do.
I knew what I was getting into when I interviewed Whitney. There was a lot. I've taken some bashing because I didn't take him to task, which I have taken other people to task on some of my shows. So I understand why people are saying, well, why do you do this to this guy and not to this guy? But I knew what I was getting into when I invited Whitney on, and I let him do his Whitley on, and I let him do his thing. Basically, I questioned him right off the bat, and the first thing I said to him in 5 minutes was, you're a great fiction writer. What do you say to the people that say this is not fiction, of your abductions and things like that? And he said he's been asked that question 750,000 times, his exact words. I said, well, add one more to it. And anyway, he kind of, he did his thing. There's some of the things that are way out there. Maybe some of the things happen to him. I'm not really sure. He's a very intelligent man. He's a great storyteller. and we talked quite a bit off air. I'm actually going to be doing some appraising of art for him. And I enjoyed the conversation. That's all I got to say. I don't look back. I rarely ever listen to my past shows or podcasts, but I listened to a good part of that one, and I'm not unhappy with it. So,
but I would, the question specifically was, I think it's a good question. Did this change your views of him or his story?
I could be a politician, couldn't I? I did a pretty good job with that, but
that's why I'm an interviewer.
You reeled me back. You reeled me back.
I'm getting out of you being the politician,
I will say,
going around the question. I'm going to get the answer from you.
I will say,
dance all you want, buddy.
All right, here it goes. As I said in the beginning of the answer, I knew what I was getting into. So in that case, I would say, no, I'm not. My mind has not changed on what I think about Whitley. That didn't move in any which way.
See, everything you just told me makes perfect sense to me, because that's exactly how I feel. I like talking to Whitley. His brain is very interesting. He doesn't live in reality. And, I'm like you, I challenge people. But if I did an interview with him, I'd do it like you, because when you interview Whitley, that's what you get. And that's his charm. That is him. And for me, he's kind of like in this almost fantasy world all the time. His brain is just always thinking about the what ifs and contemplating what if this or what if that, and alternate realities, which is what makes him special and why he's like a famous author. If you're going to get, it's not really some place where you're going to get to truth. I don't think it's not necessarily research, but it is really interesting what ifs. And
yeah,
I feel the same. I feel intrigued by what he has to say, and I don't feel compelled to challenge him so much.
Well, you know what would happen if you challenged him? Click. He would hang up instantly. If you
I don't think so.
You don't.
Because I feel like I have
done it then.
If you do it in a nice way, I mean, like, we're good at, he'll answer, but it'll be an answer for a researcher that'll probably be unsatisfactory. Yeah. But because he's happy to say, I don't know, just thinking, just speculation, could be this, could be something totally different, even with his own experiences.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's ways of challenging someone, which I did at the very beginning, a soft way, and then there's a way you can, be abrupt about it, and that's when you're right. I mean, that's when I do think he would hang up on someone.
See, and people are guys who are in here a lot are agreeing with us that, I know, for instance, two people who have commented are Dirk and Ad Astra, and I know they feel like we do. They're good researchers, intelligent guys who want to get to answers. But they both say, no matter what you think of him, they're interesting. He's an interesting interview. Dirk says he's interesting and friendly. Ad Astra says he's never not interesting. And he says, but I swear he has a bicameral mind. I don't think he's malicious or seeking to publicize himself. I think he just is, he doesn't have a filter so much, and he just kind of, whatever's on his mind or whatever's going on out there, he's sharing. Which
I had just one more comment, if I can. Mm-hmm. I had someone from the retired gentleman from the Defense Department that listens to the show, and real nice guy, and he basically commented, that if these visitors that Whitley talks about had all this information, then why is any of the information behind the paywall on Whitley's website? That type of thing. And like, monetary shouldn't mean anything to any of these visitors if that's the case. You kind of get where he's going with this. That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't have anything to do with money. It should have just be free information for all.
But that's not the way the world works. You can't get this information out. And especially at this point, the reason that I'm going to completely disagree with that person is you can't get any news about anything. And I'm sorry, UFO people. Obviously, I'm very interested in this topic, but there's a lot more important things going on that are affecting people's lives, existential issues. This is not as existential an issue as many others that are going on right now, where people's livelihoods or safety are directly threatened. And those topics, you've got to pay to get information on those topics too. COVID, I mean, New York Times, LA Times, San Diego Tribune, the AZ family, speaking of some of the places I live, I'm sure it's the same where you live. News is no longer free because everybody's trying to figure out how to monetize it, because traditional, ways have gone away, namely print. So, so you got to pay for information. That's today's world. So I don't know. I don't buy that as an argument, to be honest. I think the aliens would know about resources and how it takes resources to create. And so I don't think that would be a factor.
Well, yeah, it was interesting, and as interviewing someone like that can always be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to continue to.
In fact, Anthony from on Facebook says, "Keep doing what you guys are doing. Love the show. Unfortunately, it's time to earn that coin." So he's got to go to work to make some money. Everybody's got to make money. You can't. Yeah. That's the way. It's a capitalist country, and it's kind of funny because people, and I would gather, at the risk of offending people that I don't mind offending at all, and that I kind of take some pleasure in offending. To be honest, it seems like the same people who complain, "I want stuff for free, I want stuff for free," are the same people who are like, "Down with socialism. Socialism is communism," because they have no clue what they're talking about. And this whole thing. Well, that's a socialist thing you're asking for. You want all this information for free. Well, how is that going to happen? How are we going to be able to do that? Is the government going to subsidize us? Is that how we're going to do it? How are we going to do that? That's not possible. You're not living in reality. Yeah. And you same people got to realize when you're asking for all this free stuff, and it does seem to be the people that ask for the most free stuff are the same people who don't want to pay for anything.
Well, it's very much also along the lines of what you're saying, is if we wean ourselves off of fossil fuel and go into renewable energy, it's a tough transition. This has been a tough transition for everybody. I mean, you and I, here we are, you're in, where are you? You're in Arizona this time. And I'm in the state of Maine. And here we are talking to anyone that wants to listen in the world right now. And they can listen to it for free, and because so many things
are awesome.
We really are. I didn't think of that, but yeah. But you think of the transition from, we didn't have this technology not too long ago to be able to do any of this stuff. And you have to, it's a process getting through, think about the music industry, how much they had to adjust. And you were talking earlier about newspapers, and everybody has to adjust to something new, and it's not easy. It's not easy to do.
Yeah. And some comments people have made, there should be a balance or exchange. That would be great. There's a lot of should be's, I think, that are good. Someone said we need a Star Trek economy, and AJ says you have to pay to get the word out, which is exactly right. So it costs authors money to publish, and it does. So if you want to self-publish, like a lot of people are doing these days, and to be honest, I think that's the way to go. You've got to pay quite a bit of money before, even if you go with like Amazon, you got to pay for formatting and you got to get photos, and there's all this stuff that needs to be done. So it does cost money to get that out. And of course, this tool we're using right now, you and I both pay a monthly fee to use this streaming tool that we use. So everything costs money. So yeah, exactly. The light set we're using and everything. So those are those points, but let's get to, in other words, we'll get off of Whitley, but just to defend Whitley putting stuff behind paywall. That's just the way of the world, people. And I know it's tough. It's just like we got to do with TV. Do you want to watch Stranger Things? Do you want to watch Star Trek? If you want to watch both, then you're going to have to pony up the money to pay for CBS and Netflix. Yeah. What can you do?
What can you do? Yeah.
By the way, those are great shows. And then if you want to see Mandalorian, you got to get Disney. If you want to see Baby Yoda, who's freaking adorable, love Baby Yoda. So
I have no idea what you're talking about, but that sounds interesting.
The Mandalorian. That's, in fact, there's a new episode today. Great show.
Okay.
Excellent. It's winning all kinds of awards. You don't know about Mandalorian and Baby Yoda? Wow.
No, I've watched like two things. I've talked to you about this. My Octopus Teacher. I love that.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's great.
that was great. And then Queen's Gambit, and that's like the only two things I haven't watched anything UFO related at all.
We watched Queen's Gambit too. That was really good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh my gosh, did you see? Oh, so yeah, good stuff. In fact, honey, it looks like my honey's daughter just landed, so she's got to run to the airport. Where did the doggy go? Well, somebody's in the kitchen eating, and so he's, of course, paying very close attention to the floor below her and probably scavenging in there. He'll be here soon, though, because she's got to go pick up her daughter from the airport. All right, so let's get into more news. Ad Astra says Baby Yoda is the only good thing about The Mandalorian. No way. Mandalorian's pretty cool. Baby Yoda is awesome, though. And it's wild you don't know about Baby Yoda. But let's get into some more.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. UFO news of the week. So something interesting, a couple things. So to introduce this topic, I first want to go back to this thing, the big news. So I interviewed James Fox for Phoenix MUFON. And I did it for Stacy, who may or may not be here. She may have already taken off. She just likes to come in and get a thrill when we say, hey, it's Stacy. And then she leaves, apparently. We'll see. She'll talk some crap here if she's still here. Picard is awful. I loved Picard. Oh, my gosh. So anyway, so I interviewed James Fox, and he said there's some big news coming.
Yeah.
And everybody's flipping out. And it's so ridiculous. And it's
I've
so
got
frustrating.
about 10 emails. Yeah.
This is why I'm so frustrated with the UFO community and why I don't like to even call myself part of the UFO community. And I'm so frustrated. And some of you may be in here, and I'm sorry if I'm talking about you, but knock it off, knuckleheads. You know, they take the smallest thing. Look, there's Karen. And they blow it up into something huge. They have no idea what James's news is. But all of a sudden, people are making videos that this is going to be news that's going to change the world.
Yeah,
blah,
I saw
blah,
that.
Blah. You know, this happened
from people that have done that before.
This happened with the New York Times article.
Yeah, same guy doing the same thing. Yeah.
People got so upset with me when I'm like, dudes, not going to happen. Best case scenario, they will mention UFO crashes in this New York Times article coming out. And that's essentially all we got. They mentioned a little more than I thought, but it wasn't this big earth-shattering news. Neither is this going to be, and I think I know what it is. So go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know that I just mentioned that the same person who has done this before with the New York Times article, doing it again, and they put a hashtag openminds.tv and hashtag podcast UFO on, okay, here it comes, or something like that. I don't know if you caught that. Same thing. Might
have noticed it, but probably did what I just did. Major eye roll. Major eye roll, people.
You've had some eye rolls this session. Yeah.
I've been eye rolling like a mofo.
Yeah.
My eyes are going to roll out of my head. People, have some discernment. Do some analysis first. Yeah. Somebody, Louise, from the Unidentified Celebrity View, he says, it's quite silly. I said on my channel to manage expectations. I watched that, Louise, actually. I was watching that earlier this morning. I was checking up on some of your videos. And you're right. You know, these expectations get ridiculous. Now, you apparently feel like there's a lot of major disclosure going on, talking to Louise. I wouldn't even go that far. I don't think that's the case at all. What we're seeing, which is really interesting, I think, is we're seeing a lot of the surface stuff. A lot of this, in other words, there's secrecy going on, and we're going to get into that. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of the mechanizations that are happening. these interfaces with the DoD, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the different agencies. We're seeing different people do different things. And those are extremely interesting to analyze and to figure out how things are working. And we kind of have this opportunity right now because we're seeing these interactions that normally we weren't privy to. And that's huge. Some of the people I would recommend that you guys follow. Twitter, I think, is a great tool. But follow, here are the people with real sources, deep inside sources that are credible. Most, if not all of the other people you're hearing from are full of it. They don't have good resources. They have anonymous weirdos maybe coming to them. I know you have that, Martin. I get this constantly. People claiming they're admirals, generals, working with the aliens, all kinds of crazy crap.
Yeah, we got a really good one this week. Yeah.
And some of the popular UFO researchers go wild with these. They're like, oh, I'm so special. I'm the only one that this alien admiral is talking to. So I've got the scoop on what's going on in the background. And that's most of the UFO community. The UFO community eats that up and they're like, oh, did you hear that Jeffrey Jones, I just made up that name, is talking to an admiral who's saying that this is happening or that is happening. Oh, we're just on the verge of disclosure. And this has been going on for decades. Ever since I've been in this field, this is the sort of thing. Don't fall for it, people. There's a long game here. We're playing the long game, and we're at a very pinnacle, important part of that long game right now where you can actually get real information. Who are the people with real sources? Of course, Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon of To the Stars.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Insiders with friends who are insiders. They've got credible, reliable sources. Now, sometimes people have great sources and they get credible information, but they don't interpret that information correctly or maybe differently than you would. For example, John Greenwald, he does an amazing job doing the deep dig, doing the work to get those FOIA documents. I don't necessarily always agree, although honestly, mostly we do. I don't always agree with his interpretations, and I share that with you all. But for the most part, we do. And John and I do stay in touch, and we even still kind of go back and forth on some of this stuff. But MJ Banayas and Tim McMillan. MJ, I wouldn't say necessarily has any more sources than anyone else, but he's very credible in the way he writes. He has good sources, not deep insider sources, but he has good sources, and he's good at discernment, figuring out where that great information is.
And what was the last one you mentioned? What was the last one you mentioned?
MJ Banayas?
No, after him.
Tim McMillan.
Tim McMillan. Okay.
And this is a big key. So Danny Silva, I would say, has great resources. Definitely keep an eye on him as well. Nick Pope obviously worked in the government. He has great resources. Keep an eye on him. These are great sources. That's what a journalist does, is develop sources. Brian Binder, of course, is really plugged into the Hill. Also, Tyler Rogaway, great insider sources and great analysis. These are the people that you want to pay attention to and take when they say a source is telling me, or I have this information coming from a source, take that information to heart. Their analysis you may disagree with, but for the most part, all these people have great analysis as well. And of course, George Knapp. George Knapp has some amazing sources. Again, I know not everybody agrees with George Knapp and his analysis of that information, but for the most part, where that information is coming from is good. And if the source is dubious, a la Bob Lazar, if at least George Knapp will tell you what that source of information is and let you know if it's dubious. He knows whether or not they're dubious. He may believe it, but at least he'll share with you it is a dubious source, so you have to take this with a grain of salt or judge for yourself. Those are the really good sources. Speaking of which, this is really crazy. Getting back to Tim McMillan. So has Tim McMillan been vetted? I can say yes. I can tell you, I've spent quite a bit of time talking with Tim McMillan. In fact, if you join the Rojas reports, please do hit that join button. It's going to ask you for a couple bucks. Do it now.
I can't do it. I don't see it.
I'm telling you.
I'm sorry.
Martin, cut it out. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to be watching on YouTube. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be watching on YouTube. Join. But I have at least one interview there. I've got a couple interviews with Tim McMillan where you'll want to listen to him. I get shocked too, because sometimes he'll have inside information and I'll be like, what? How is he talking to someone in the UAP task force? Or how's he talking to this person or that person? And I have gone to vet his sources, and even the people I talk to are like, I don't know where he gets his sources. He's got some amazing sources. Wow. And I have talked to him a little bit about where he gets his sources. And really, it's just because his wife works in a diplomatic sort of job. And and as a law enforcement person, as a police officer, it opens a lot of doors. Friends like Chuck Zukowski, when you pull that, or my friend Marianne Robb, when you pull out that cop card, that opens up a lot of doors and a lot of people will talk to you. So Tim does have some amazing sources. I can tell you, I feel like I have vetted Tim thoroughly, and his sources are good. And that's really important for right now, because I told you I knew about the news that was upcoming, or I believe I know. I didn't get this from Tim. I got this from my own sources. But on the McLaughlin group, if you've ever watched that show, of course, the guy who used to run that show has passed away, and it used to be a very balanced show. Now he's got a lot of people on there I'm not big fans of, and I'm not, to be honest, a big fan of Tom Rogan. He writes for the Washington Examiner, which I think is a total. I'm not a big fan, but anyway, he's the guy who wrote that article essentially accusing Stephen Greer of faking that Florida UFO event. And he is a mainstream journalist. And at the end of the McLaughlin group, if you've ever watched that show, I haven't watched it since he died. I used to watch it a lot, but they do predictions at the end. And Tom Rogan at the end, said, I keep an eye on my friend Tim McMillan. He has a big story coming out. That's the big story. So yeah, he outed Tim McMillan. Tim McMillan is the guy that has the story, that is going to be posting this story soon.
Oh,
is it going to change the world? No. What the hell are you people thinking? Where do you get this from? You pull this out of your butt.
But I understand this, Alejandro. Let me tell when you have something like this, like say something is coming out, it gets everyone's mind racing, and it's almost so much better if you never say a single thing about it, and just come out with it when it's ready to come out with. You shouldn't lay it out there, because it's like anything that can turn into a conspiracy.
Yeah, but sometimes the stories, it's the hard part, because the New York Times article, for example, that everybody blew out of proportion. How did they get to know about it? It was largely from the New York Times interviewing people, and then those people being interviewed, saying, I was interviewed by some people with the New York Times. They're working on a story. And by simply saying that, people blew it out of proportion.
Yeah.
And the people involved. Just because someone's being interviewed by the New York Times that believes, Roswell is real and there's an aliens that we recovered at Roswell. Not that was the case, but kind of, doesn't mean the New York Times is going to cover that wild belief this person has, because what they're going to want to, and if they are, they're going to make fun of it unless they can substantiate it somehow or have other witnesses. So, you got to understand the way the sausage is made, essentially, which is it should be obvious to people, but I don't know. But yeah, people blow it out of proportion. So all I can say is Tim McMillan was outed. Essentially, he's the guy who's writing the story. So keep an eye on him. And just today, I don't know if you've seen this, Martin, Tim McMillan, along with Micah Hanks and MJ Banias, who I was just talking about. I've also had Micah Hanks on the show. I've been on his show. Love Micah Hanks. In fact, the opening and close music, the opening, opening and close music to the show is made by his brother. They're both super talented musicians. Micah has this amazing radio voice. I love Micah. They're really cool. In fact, I've got some cool videos right here. If you're on YouTube, I've got an interview with Micah Hanks at the Devil's Tower when we were there for an event. But yeah, I love Micah. So they're all getting together to do this new thing called the Debrief. So they've got a new website. Want to look at it?
Yeah, sure. I can't. I'm on Tim McMillan's Twitter feed,
There it is.
but I don't see anything.
Prepared to be amazed, people.
Da-da-da.
Whoa. That's all they got so far.
Oh, well, see, I can make a conspiracy out of that alone.
But essentially, they say that they're going to cover science, technology, and defense news. So that's pretty exciting. I love these guys, and they're all really good. And I think this should be great. Now, is the story going to come out on this site? I hope not. And here's why I say that. It would be good for them, and it would be a good start. But I got to say out of experience that it's really hard to get news out when you post it on your own website, especially a website that doesn't already have a lot of traffic. I have that issue, with my site. Sometimes we have some stories that go viral, but we really don't get much recognition until mainstream references our article. Yeah. And so that's kind of what's tough. Yeah, so it takes a while. Whereas those guys, MJ and Tim specifically, have been writing for like Vice, Popular Mechanics, which of course both have large audiences. So I hope that they're able to get their article in a larger venue like that. Although I've done this before too, where I've written my article for, let's say, the Huffington Post, but then I refer to my own article at Open Minds because I write a longer article. Because typically, most media outlets only want maybe 1,000 words. You know, that's the new thing, 800 to 1,000 words. You got to keep your stories super short. So, the longer pieces have to go elsewhere.
Right.
So, yeah. But, it's not clickbait, though, Louise. I can tell you that. I do know what the news is. And it is interesting news. But people
it's not worth changing. I know a little bit about it. It's not earth changing.
You know what? And somebody made this point. I don't know if it was Louise. I think it was Louise said something about how science news is boring and science is boring. And yeah, he said it in relation to this, because saying, remember, James Fox is really into science and stuff, and science is boring. So just because James Fox says it's exciting doesn't mean it's going to be. The stuff that I'm into, the stuff that we present on this show, a lot of people feel is boring because I'm not talking about aliens and hangars and, Zeta Reticulans and what the Pleiadians are up to and who the reptilians are having sex with or whatever.
Well, we will behind the paywall.
Yeah, right. You have to pay to get that juicy stuff.
And we'll talk about it.
So this is, and this should be a big red flag for a lot of people. I find the news exciting. So if I find it exciting, a lot of people are going to find it boring. I think it's going to be cool news that's going to help move the government. Let's see, I'm adjusting my camera again. It's going to help move the government stuff forward, which is really kind of what I'm focusing on, which is how is the government dealing with this? What do they know? How are they dealing with all of this, all of that kind of stuff? So that's what the news is going to be more related to, which is pretty interesting.
And that is the exciting part of it. In my opinion, from what I know.
Ad Astra. See, that's why my audience rocks. I don't know if your audience is well, I know your audience is good as mine. Doesn't get better than mine. But I mean, you're over there interviewing Whitley Strieber or whatever. But
touche.
But Ad Astra's over here. Alejandro, leave the dopamine addicts to their stupid stuff. We're all science buffs here as well. That's so awesome. But Louise is saying that these people are looking for hits that are selling this as earth-changing news. Probably. Matthew Rudy is saying, knows about what? Well, you can't join us halfway in the conversation and expect
he just joined.
Yeah, you're going to have to watch the rest of the show. But essentially, we're talking about that big news, Matthew. Dirk says you and I pretty much have the same audience. I think he's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it knows about what this earth-shattering news is. So it's going to be big news. It's interesting news. The story hasn't even come out. It might not come out. You know, when the New York Times, we heard from the authors, they were really upset with the UFO community because they said, you guys screwed up our story. You got so crazy about it and made it into something it wasn't, that you made some of our people back off who we interviewed, and you really screwed up our expectations and you screwed up our story. That's what the Times people said.
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this.
No, Matthew, thanks for being arrogant. That wasn't being arrogant, was I? I was teasing you because you showed up late and then you wanted to know about what we were talking about. I was just kidding. Matthew got mad. He says he's unsubscribing.
Hurt his feelings. Wow. Sorry, Matthew.
What can you do? What can you do?
We joke a little bit. If you still haven't wandered away, Matthew, we've joked.
Yeah, if you're still here, Matthew, it's just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding, dude.
Now yes. What I was going to say is, I don't know if you remember this, but I was in contact with both Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kane ahead, and they kept denying, no story here, nothing here. And then finally I got this email from Leslie saying, I'm really sorry that I had to say that, but I had to say that. And yes, we do have a story. And then she went on to say basically what you just said. It has been really, really difficult. And I had a conversation also with Ralph, how difficult it has been that the UFO community decided to take it upon themselves to speculate and cause all kinds of trouble for them while they were trying to make this story ironclad as possible. Mm-hmm. You know, it was an issue.
Joseph says, keep up the great work. You just joined from Dallas. Thank you so much. Dirk says, Business Insider just went behind a paywall, like we're talking about. Everybody's going behind paywall. So it's a little harder to read some of the stories that I was talking about. Yeah, I would say that, you know, some of the people I'm talking about, I think have written for Business Insider. Business Insider, though, has become just, it's very tabloidish. So I wouldn't trust Business Insider anyway, unless it's a trustworthy author. So for instance, the Star in England, total tabloid piece of junk site, covers really terrible UFO news, if not just complete falsehoods. But Nick Pope writes for the Star sometimes, and his articles are excellent, in my humble opinion. Nick Pope, he was a guy who worked for the UK government. He obviously has some incredible sources, and I have never seen him be disingenuous or inaccurate in his information. Some people kind of argue different things, but I think they're being petty personally. So that's some of the news regarding the big news. It's coming from Tim McMillan. Tim McMillan is starting a new website with a bunch of other great guys that are writing great stuff in this field who you can trust. So I'm very excited for their website. Way to go, guys.
And that actually
too. So
pardon me.
We'll bring MJ on and Micah on soon. I'll do Rojas reports with them very soon. In fact, next week. I didn't do one this week. I'm so sorry, but I'll do one next week. By the way,
next week is Thanksgiving.
That's cool. It's okay. Cool. We'll still work on Thanksgiving. Ain't no thing.
All right.
Maybe not on Turkey Day, but we'll do it day after or something.
I'm around myself, not doing anything. So
really, I'll probably be traveling Friday. I think we're going to go back to California Friday.
All right.
But we'll see what happens. But I'll do that. Oh. Provided it's Matthew. Are you saying you're leaving? Matthew said something, but I can't understand. He might be hating. He might be cool, but ex-chit show. That doesn't sound good.
Oh, Matthew, we're really sorry. It was just a joke. It was just a joke.
What can you do?
Wow.
To be honest, though, if Matthew can't take a joke like that, adios, muchacho. What can you do?
Wow.
Okay. I mean, he's the one who came in halfway.
Yeah.
Once he disrupted our whole show. Actually, it's been kind of fun to talk about this.
Okay.
Hope you stick around, Matthew.
Yeah.
If not, what's a Godspeed? So, and he's going to be the one missing out anyway. So let's see what else. There was other stuff. Let's see for the week.
Can I just
And
bring
if
up
you guys
something
have
while you're
some
looking?
questions, do let us know. Yes, please.
Oh, well,
do.
I saw John Fogerty was in the news like crazy all of a sudden, but that interview he had about his UFO experience was a year old. And all of a sudden, did you notice that? All of a sudden, it's all over the news about John Fogerty talking about UFOs. But that was
what?
something he did a year ago.
The media, especially the Sun or the UK tabloids, used to do this a lot, and they still do this sometimes, where they dig up old cases. Often they're old debunked videos. But I did notice that this one video from Mexico resurfaced of an orb kind of flying in a forest. And that's an interesting video. I never know where that video came from, but that was a really interesting one. Let's see. Dirk says, I was reading the guy you were talking about on military and defense. Oh, Tim McMillan, maybe? Yeah, maybe I should talk about Tim more, because it seems like a lot of people don't know much about Tim McMillan, and he's great.
Yeah,
I've interviewed him a couple times.
Lieutenant Tim McMillan, right?
Yeah, Lieutenant Tim McMillan. You're exactly correct. Well done, my friend.
Retired.
Well done.
Yeah.
A couple other things. There's been some news also about how Jacques Vallée has said in the Phenomenon documentary that there was another group researching UFOs. Today, the Mystery Wire, which is ran by KLAS, I'm mixing it all up, but essentially the network that George Knapp works for.
Yeah, it's KLAS, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. And for some reason, I keep thinking that's wrong. But anyway, he posted on the Mystery Wire something about the Bollinger Memo, which, had told us about the that there was already another group. And I just wanted to remind people that I also have an article on this that I did recently, and I'm going to share that. So do check that out. I mean, when did I do this? July 20th. So a little bit ago, but decades of government UFO gaslighting exposed. And my point was that, when they closed Blue Book, and a little bit about Blue Book, they told us the same thing. The Bollinger Memo, where it says, hey guys, this general is writing, even though we're closing Blue Book, the important national security cases go somewhere else anyway. So it's no big deal. And I also went over how we've had these documents, government documents. I have a video about it too, showing that there are UFOs. Now we have the Senate and Marco Rubio talking about it. So kind of how they have been lying to us for years that they've had no interest, when in fact they have. And the Bollinger Memo, when they closed Project Blue Book, was the memo that told us this in the first place, that someone else was looking at the good cases. So they really have been gaslighting us for decades, and they're trying to do it again. And this is another piece of news that I wanted to read to you all. And this is something Brian Bender found. So here's what he writes. I'm going to read this tweet to you from Brian Bender. I think you'll find this interesting too, Martin. So as part of my reporting, Brian Bender, who writes for Politico, has broken a ton of the stories. In fact, we gave him UFO Researcher of the Year at the UFO Congress. And if you're like, what? Why would they do that? Watch our video that shows you why we did that. Look at my Chris Mellon article about this whole plan to get this information out. You'll see that Brian Bender broke a ton of the big stories that led to where we're at right now. But anyways, he says, so as part of my reporting, the Pentagon Public Affairs Office advised I send a list of written questions about the workings and plans of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force that was established in August. So I did. Here's what I got. No one is available for interview on the UAPTF, the UAP Task Force, to maintain operation security and to avoid disclosing information that may be useful to potential adversaries. DoD does not discuss publicly the details of either the observations or the examination of reported incursions into our training ranges or designated airspace, including those incursions initially designated as UAP. that also includes any details of the UAPTF and its activities, unquote. Basically, the official position is there's nothing to see here. That won't wash for long. Maybe it won't last for, who knows? We'll have to see. The point here being that, like I had talked about earlier, and why this point in time is important, and this is really kind of going into factoring, how I am attacking this issue, and I'm sure others, and certainly in the way that we're attacking this issue at the Scientific Coalition for UAP Research, is that apparently I think that John Greenwald got a similar response. Roger Gassel from a Swedish researcher got a similar response. All indications are the UAP task force has no intention of being another Blue Book. Blue Book was a public-facing organization that shared information. UAP task force is saying what we do is classified. The results of what we do are classified. We're not telling you nothing.
Well, I thought there was at some point there was a transparency aspect to this whole thing. No.
Well, the Senate Intelligence Committee asked for there to be transparency, and it was just a suggestion, but also just kind of, I think, and I should check myself because I feel like they said that, but they asked for the UAP report to be public-facing, that there be a public-facing report. And so that will come. However, that report could be very surface, not very in-depth. And I know that's what people like Chris Mellon and Luis Elizondo are working on now, is to make sure that everyone's informed that there should be a very comprehensive report, because there's a lot of information out there to be had. So we'll see. But obviously, the intonations we're getting here are that they do not intend to share information, that they do consider their work classified. A couple points to that. One is that Chris Mellon, when he suggested that the Senate make these inquiries, did say that this research is classified. So most likely any reports the Senate gets will need to be classified reports. He, like in my interview, said he was surprised that the Senate said they wanted this public-facing report, but happily surprised, because he feels that there should be some transparency. But I think that's our goal right now. Certainly at the SCU, our goal is to advocate for the scientific investigation of this topic, which includes then the UAP task force sharing information with the public. There should be a mechanism where when they come to a cold case, they find a case truly unidentified, like the Nimitz case, that they should at some point be able to share that data with the public, and especially scientific organizations, so that we can, as a group, kind of like SETI, figure out what the heck is this? What are the tic tacs? So we can get some of that data that they have, because they're sitting on data. They're sitting on radar data. If you all heard my interview with Robert Powell, my latest, or the Rojas reports I did, you guys can talk about this too, in that the radar data is better data than video or photos often. In fact, in many ways it's better, because it shows us the physical object that was moving and the nature of its movement. So radar data is typically much better than photo or video data. Or when it comes to that video data, more information about the video data. So that's the sort of stuff that we need if we're really going to find out what's going on with this phenomena. So hopefully we can get that sort of thing. But I think it's really important to note, UAP Task Force is not planning on releasing anything. That means it's incumbent upon us to make noise and to be, I like to say, patient and persistent in requesting that they give us information, and requesting, putting it lightly, we need to demand that they give us information if that's what we want.
And so is this this thing, the whole purpose of this thing being set up is because of a possible threat situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know what? And this is an aspect that I didn't touch upon in my article that I think I'm going to write a new article about. Remember, Chris Mellon was the guy, he helped after 9/11 to reorganize the intelligence agencies. Part of the problem with 9/11 is that we had all of these intelligence agencies, but they weren't talking to each other and working together. Had they been doing that, perhaps we could have avoided 9/11. So they created this coalition, that this ability to centralize information and to share information. It's exactly what he's doing with UFOs. He's saying that, look, the Navy, Air Force, there are groups that are looking into UFOs and have analyzed UAP incidents, but everything's stovepiped. Air Force doesn't know what the Navy's doing. This group doesn't know what this group is doing.
Yeah.
They're all not sharing information, so there is no cohesive, look at what this issue. And that's exactly what the Senate Intelligence Committee addressed. They said there needs to be a central location so that where all of that information is shared, so a better analysis can be made. And that was what resulted in the creation of the UAP task force. So really, Chris Mellon is applying that kind of 9/11 model to the UAP issue, trying to have the Senate force a collection of this information so that they can research further to solve an important intelligence issue that thus far Chris Mellon and others believe has been a major intelligence failure by not doing this up to this point.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of amazing if you think about it that we didn't have something in place where our intelligence agencies could work together. I understand about, top secret things and they want to, need to know type of stuff, that type of thing. But when it comes to anything like the 9/11, for instance, it's so hard to believe they weren't working together. Just baffling.
It's shocking. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. I mean, we see that, and people have criticized, and I've actually had some conversation with Chris Mellon lately via email because people have kind of criticized. Well, he says that he had oversight of all the SAPs, and that there were no UAP SAPs. And he told me he was surprised ATIP existed because he had not seen any projects specifically on this issue. But then later on, he goes on to say in the Senate intelligence thing that there has been UAP research going on. Those seem to oppose each other. They don't. Here's why. He said there are no UAP projects. That seems to be exactly correct. And you got to remember, ATIP was after he was in office looking for these projects. But what he's saying and what has been borne out by researchers such as like Keith Basterfield or John Greenwald or others, we haven't found any UAP specific organization. However, we have found agencies inside of the military that have looked at cases. So in other words, these groups that are examining these UAP cases are groups that are set up to look at foreign technology, the Foreign Technology Division, or the Department of Technology, or these other departments. Like in the Bollinger memo, it said, we already have procedures to look at these other cases. He's exactly right. When we find an unidentified, we send them to different scientific groups or different intelligence groups that aren't set up for UAP. They're set up for, looking at enemy or foreign technology or things like this. So it's research that have gone inside of different departments. That's what he's talking about. And that there needs to be a UAP project where, all this information is coalesced, that is happening, all this research that's happening in all of these different agencies and departments and stuff, a project here, a project there, all of that needs to be coalesced into this UAP task force, which is kind of what Elizondo was trying to do on his own, I think, with the ATIP group, is that he's saying, hey, Navy, I know you guys investigated this case. What did you find out? Who looked at it? What departments? He's probably referred to different scientific research groups inside of the Navy that he works with. That's how this works. So that's why that's why what Chris Mellon is saying is he's not contradicting himself. He's just, and I hope to get an interview where we could, talk about this specifically to kind of flesh this out further, and you can get all of this in his own words. But he's just saying that, there weren't projects, but there's research and data out there, and we need to gather that data in a project. Now we have one, the UAP task force. To Brian's point, though, the UAP task force now is that central location, and that's who they're going to be, the people that we're going to eventually be, really tackling to get this information out, because they're coalescing this information, they're analyzing this information, and they're the ones who need an attitude check, to be honest. They obviously have no intention and are fighting even talking to Politico about anything that they do. And Brian's like, that's not going to wash. And I hope he's right, because that means that all of us, the media and the public, need to let them know, yeah, that's not how this is going to work, dudes. You're going to have to tell us something. And as that pressure mounts, especially as, mainstream media organizations and hopefully scientific organizations, I mean, I really want to start to do this with SCU, put pressure on these organizations, then hopefully they'll bend to that pressure. And we also need to talk to our senators. So our senators put pressure too, to say, hey, that's not cool. We need answers.
Well, couldn't this also, in a way, be a two-way street as far as them utilizing, I know it's military, but beyond military, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of opinions from, say, scientists that are with the SCU, or reports from, they could get information from eyewitness reports through MUFON, or, in other words, don't you think they could be reaching outside of, into the civilian world, or are they going to just stay into the military aspect of this type of research, do you think?
I think they're going to stay within the military. Speaking of Nick Pope, at the UK, in the early 2000s, decided, we get more UAP requests for our FOIA than anything else. So now we're going to proactively release all of our UFO files in batches. And they did that. And before they were even done, 2008 came around, and they said, because they had this UFO desk that Nick Pope worked at in the 90s, and they even had Nick Pope help them with messaging and letting the public know they were letting this information out. In 2008, then they said, we're closing our doors. We don't want to hear any more UFO reports. Go to your local officials for that. We're done. And Nick Pope, this is how he framed it. It would be absolutely ridiculous and irresponsible for them not to look at the issue anymore. They're certainly looking at the issue. They just don't feel they need the public's help anymore, which he felt was interesting. And I think that's how our military feels as well. And they've got a good point in that MUFON data is nearly useless. It's eyewitness reports, of which I would gather, best case scenario, 90% are worth something. Worst case, and probably more accurately, 95, if not more, are just worthless. They're misidentifications of mundane objects. So how do you find the good 5%? Really, really hard to do. In fact, this is something else I talked to Robert Powell about. Because
wait, before you move on.
Move on. Yeah.
I didn't mean that so much. I meant in collaborating a report in particular. Like to say, if there were witnesses to a certain case, wouldn't it be helpful for them to, if they knew there were witnesses, to go and get as much information as they can?
I guess they feel, well, and here's the thing is that that's only anecdotal information. The real information, and this is what we need. And if I were them, I would throw out those cases. You need at least expert witnesses. General public is typically not going to be expert witnesses. Rarely will they be. But at the very least, you need expert witnesses. What else do you need? Telemetry. You need data. And they're the ones with the radar. They're the ones with the FLIR cameras. They're the ones with the equipment to get the scientific data that you could actually do something with. That's why it's so important for civilian investigators and scientists in this to get access to that government data, because they've got the expensive equipment we paid for that is collecting this information.
Yeah.
And that's the scientific data we need. Otherwise, all we can do is like what Robert Powell and Peter Reilly and Kevin Knuth did with the Nimitz information. They took what we knew of the camera data, but also coupled it with the expert witness testimony to figure out and estimate what might have been the speeds and characteristics of the object, the Tic Tac that was seen. So I think that's why they hold very little value in that data that's achieved by the public. Now, projects like Sky-Hub, though, and what Chris, what's our friend's name? And Chris O'Brien is doing.
But Sky-Hub is another Chris.
Yeah. Sky-Hub actually is headed mostly by Steve McDaniel and another group of people. But you're right. Chris Cogswell is working on
Chris
that.
Cogswell, that's it.
Chris O'Brien has also created something similar. Those are the type of things where you're getting hard data, video, other telemetry that you're able to start to extrapolate things with. So that's what we need, is that sort of thing. Then the government might start to get interested in that data, because it's more than just witnesses. It's actual telemetry gathered by sophisticated machines. A couple of questions. We'll kind of wrap things up. I think that's all the news that I wanted to talk about for the week, with some of the interesting things going on. But this is where we are in all of this. This is the kind of stuff that we have to talk about and we need to consider. And this is an actionable type of stuff. What I mean by that, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we can actually assert ourselves and into this conversation and effectively make change. And I think we can. I say that from experience, in that we have been able to turn heads by doing certain things, and this is where we have some room. We need to get that information from the UAP task force, and we need to ask for it. Nobody is disclosing crap intentionally. It's another thing that is a little bit frustrating when people take this assumption. And so many in the UFO field, even the more conservative, even some of you in here, I know I've heard you say it, believe that there's some sort of kind of information that is, being pushed out purposely for us. And why is that frustrating to me? I've detailed in my articles and in our interviews, we've detailed this. This information has been hard fought. These are people who have been working for decades to get information out. And they've fought hard, they've strategized, they've been intelligent. If you read my article about Chris Mellon's plan, this is information that was drug out of the government. This isn't stuff that is free flowing. That statement that Brian Bender got from the UAP task force is evidence of that. They do not want to share anything. This has to be get drug out of them. And it takes people in the civilian world that are savvy enough to drag them out. It was Chris Mellon and Elizondo coming out. Elizondo he doesn't call himself a whistleblower because he says he wasn't revealing anything that was classified, which is true, but he was revealing information they didn't want out. They retaliated against him about this. This is hard fought, people. This is people have worked really hard to get this information out. So don't get complacent. and think that, this is we're just sitting back watching this unveiling that is happening purposefully. This unveiling you're watching, and that's what's frustrating, because it doesn't recognize the hard work and the effort of the people that are getting this information out. That's what's going on here, people, not sitting back. You may be sitting back on your couch. Oh, look at government's giving me all this information on UFOs. This is great. Finally getting disclosure. No, dude, this is information that a lot of people who have worked really hard are getting this information out to you. So respect their work and respect what they're doing, and look at what they're doing. Look at what Chris Mellon and Elizondo and some of these other people like Tim McMillan who are getting information out, George Knapp. Look what they're doing. And that's what we need to do. We need to help them mirror what they're doing and pay attention to it and help advocate for this information to get out. That's what we need to do, is help these people who are getting the information out. Jock of Ages says, Emery Smith, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. But here's a good question. We'll see what you think, Martin. What do you think of the Younger Dryas impact theory? Maybe it be that technology from over 12,800 years before may have survived somewhere. No machines have been found yet building huge megalithic sites. And he's saying, how come obvious traces of giant saws, for example, can be found on the block indicating machine builds? Check out Uncharted X YouTube channel. I disagree with that. And so does Dirk. This whole, two things. First, I disagree that we are certain that these old megalithic things are machine builds. What do you think?
I think it's really hard for us to wrap our head around the way they've made some of these structures. But I think we oftentimes think that, sure, it looks like it needs super technology. And, when you look at the fitting of stones and stuff like that, it is totally amazing. But to me, it doesn't mean that there has to be some, what was this, giant saw? Is that what
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not going to say I have any idea what the answer is, how they did the things they did, but it doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that it had to be aliens or something.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Dirk on this, who's saying the similar thing, that we might not have been able to find out some of that stuff. That there are ways for these things to happen. There could be technologies that are lost to us too. Technologies that were used, or methods that were used that we just don't know, that we don't use anymore. Dirk is saying that there are methods that we still use that could have produced some of those results. I agree with that. However, to the larger point about what about ancient technology, this is exciting because SETI has really been moving into this field, which I think is really where we're going to find some common ground, where they're now looking for what they call technosignatures. They're saying that, we should be looking for artifacts, because what if, something came and visited the moon 20,000, a million years ago, came and went, then maybe we can find some evidence, some technosignatures, some evidence of civilizations, intelligent civilizations that have been around.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. That's a big area.
Yeah. Well, there's no way to ever say, for civilizations to line up, it's the odds are we could have been visited, 10 million years ago. Who knows?
Great point. A couple other questions here. Why does Lou never state his opinion on what UAPs are and what's behind the wheel? He shouldn't. I think it's great and it's highly disciplined of him not to share that. Remember, people, that's opinion and speculation. Opinion and speculation is what we've been doing for the last few decades in the UFO field. We need to move away from that. We're getting more and more data where we can actually find these answers instead of just guessing. So Lou doesn't want to guess. Lou's point is we need to gather the data and follow the data. And I think that's what he needs. That's a great way to look at it. Follow the data. And because people will do that with me too. If I'm not sharing my opinion on certain things, I don't know. And so why speculate and hear my opinion? And a lot of times I try to be disciplined and not create an opinion so I don't taint myself.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
I mean, how do you feel about that? Like if you ask, well, what do you think? And they say, well, I don't know, following the data. Do you get frustrated with that answer?
No, I mean, I like to hear people's opinions if they have one, but I also don't want to hear from anyone that says they know something. Do you know what I mean? Like if they think they know the answer for something that involves what a UFO is, I don't think anyone really has a clue at this point.
Mm-hmm. The person who is asking about the pyramids too, he follows up and he says, I wasn't talking about aliens. The only aliens we know for sure is mankind. So he was talking about ancient technologies, perhaps, and why we haven't found those. And that's another great point. But I think that it lends towards Dirk's answer, which is if we haven't found these alleged giant machines, and maybe they don't exist because we probably would have found them.
Yeah.
David says, check out Ryan Sprague's interview with James. James seems to think the news will be big. Well, again, it's a matter of perspective. For instance, when for years, or not, I wouldn't say years, but for months before the New York Times article in December 2017, I was writing about Tom DeLonge and his conversations with insiders and how he was going to be breaking news. Even when To the Stars started, a lot of people thought that news was crap. They didn't think it was interesting. I felt it was huge news. Huge. And it was. But a lot of people didn't feel that way. So James is going to think news is really big that others won't think is big. James Fox thought it was really big news when he got Harry Reid to say, there's a lot of evidence. You haven't seen most of the UFO evidence. You've only seen the tip of the iceberg. I thought that was huge news. Very huge news. And many other people in the UFO field will not think that's interesting at all. So it's a matter of perspective. And in fact, I would even say this new news, and I'll tell you this new news, I think, and I would love your opinion, Martin, is along the lines of what Harry Reid said.
Yeah.
So I would put it that way. How did you feel about James Fox getting Harry Reid to say, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, I thought it was a major statement.
I thought so too. If you didn't think that was a major statement and you thought that was ho-hum boring, then this news that is potentially going to come out, you might think is ho-hum boring. I thought that was big news. James thought the Reid thing was big news. That's a kind of way to meter your expectations.
Righto.
Let's see. The only thing I have to speculate is if I'm actually sane. Gas mask. I think gas mask is sane. I think that comment about self-reflecting about his own sanity demonstrates
it's a sign of sanity. Yeah.
That he is a sane person. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So I think that is all. Did you have anything else?
I can't think of anything except we miss you, Matthew. We miss you.
Matthew.
I forgot him already. Poor
forgot.
Matthew.
I forgot Matthew even existed. He's dead to me.
Yeah, well, someone gave you a thumbs down. I wonder who that is.
Oh, he did. Matthew's not dead to me. He's welcome back at any time, but you got to get a better sense of humor if you're going to come back. If you're still going to be, get that stick taken out and then come back and you'll have a good time.
And happy Thanksgiving, everyone. In the
happy
US.
Thanksgiving, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to show you guys one more. I did find one last thing to cover. You're going to especially love this, Martin. See that creature right there?
Yeah.
This is in the SpaceX Dragon. And that little creature there, this is a real photo from NASA.
I watched the launch Saturday. That was awesome.
Well, that's Baby Yoda right there.
Oh, that's the Baby Yoda.
That
I
is
thought you
the
were talking about
famous Baby Yoda.
something on TV or something. I didn't know that's what it was. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Baby Yoda's in space. So he flew with SpaceX in the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station. That's where he is now. Baby Yoda is the most important news story of the week.
Okay.
And you don't even know who Baby Yoda is. Check out The
No.
Mandalorian.
All right. I
Yes.
will. Yeah.
Coder, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Coder agrees. Brian agrees. Baby Yoda rocks.
All right, Baby Yoda.
Now that you know who he is.
Yeah.
All right. So there is our show for today. That was a fun show. There's always something to talk about, I think, even if it feels like there's not a lot of news, you know?
I know. I said just before the show started, I ain't got nothing. And
yeah,
we filled it up. Yeah.
We did. Right. So what do you got coming up? Let's, before we leave, I
already did my interviews with for this next week, but it'll be coming out as a podcast with Philip Mantle on his book on young people and UFOs, trying to get the young people interested. And then I did a show after that with David Clark, and from Britain. And then next week, coming up on the 1st, is Robert Powell again on a children's book he's written for the UFO and the UFO world. So that'll be fun. That's what I got. Yeah.
Interesting. Some people are correcting me. I keep calling him Baby Yoda because I love to call it Baby Yoda. But I do realize, as people are talking, the Star Wars nerds, of which I am one too, it is true. That's not actually Baby Yoda. It's not Yoda at all. It's some other baby creature of the same type as Yoda, which we don't even know the name yet of the creature or the type of creature that he and Yoda are. So he's not really Baby Yoda. Everybody just calls him Baby Yoda because he looks like Yoda. And he's a baby, and he's adorable. The show, they actually just refer to him as the child. But that's kind of boring, kind of weird even. Baby Yoda is a lot more fun.
All right, we'll go with it.
So he's Baby Yoda to me until we find out otherwise. And he better have a cute name, too. When we do come up with a name, it better not be, like, boring, you know?
George or something, yeah.
Yeah, George. Little George. All right, so there we go. So
thank you, everyone.
Have yourself a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us again. Everybody check out Podcast UFO. Of course, check out openminds.tv. If you haven't yet, check out the Rojas Report. You can watch the latest, which is the James Fox interview, I think, right now still. Otherwise, you can hit the join button down there, and then you can get access to all of them, including my Chris Mellon interview that I keep referring to, my Elizondo interview, other great interviews, including Tim McMillan interviews as well. If you want to know more about him, that's the guy you need to keep your eyes on, because I don't think everybody got it that Tim McMillan is the guy that's releasing this big news that is going to change the world. So keep an eye on Tim there, and maybe they'll release it on their new site. So check out that new site. But yeah, I think that's everything. Oh, I always forget to mention, sorry, Martin. And I'm going to make a little commercial about this. But again, I do mortgages. If you need a mortgage, a refinance today, rates dropped again to their lowest point. Right now, they are actually at the lowest. It's a good time to refinance. If you need the cash, because I know a lot of us are struggling because of COVID and lockdowns and everything, you can pull out some cash or at least lower your monthly bill. If you're in Colorado or Arizona, I can do that for you. Or if you're not, I can help you find someone who can do that for you. Also, of course, my honey does real estate. I know real estate people in those areas if you need help that way. And if you want to become a mortgage broker, if you got laid off during COVID and you're looking for work and you need something because after Christmas, you're getting cut off on your unemployment, like so many people are, maybe go into mortgage. It's something you can do remote. You will have to get your license first. So you can go to the NMLS to figure out how to get the license in your state. But once you get your license, I can help you out with that too. And then I can hook you up and get you on as a mortgage person. And I will help you. You can be part of my group, and I'll help you with every step of the way. So get a hold of me at openminds.tv or at alejandrotrojas.com or my mortgage site, which is mortgage.alejandrotrojas.com. And I know I probably will have some comments. Oh man, the end of the show is just trying to sell us stuff and make us buy stuff. That's right.
It's behind the paywall, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not behind a paywall. So
yeah,
at least you got that.
All right.
All right. Thank you all so much. And until next time.
Adios.
Chacho.
Machachos. Yes.
Matthew. White people, man.